For the first time in our lives, we're about to set foot on the South American continent, stepping into the second half of our Pan-American highway adventure. The road behind us has been long, but what lies ahead feels different. It's wilder, richer, unknown in a way that pulls you forward. Our journeys begin in Colombia, a country bursting with life, where dense jungle meets towering mountains, where the air hums with birdsong and the landscapes stretch far beyond the horizon. A place known not just for its incredible biodiversity, but for the warmth of its people and the stories waiting around every bend. The anticipation is high, the engine's running, and this next chapter is already calling. We're ready to go, and we're taking you with us. So buckle up and let's roam. For any of those who are wondering, the Pan American Highway, as of right now, cannot be driven in its entirety. Between Panama and Colombia lies the Darien Gap, a stretch of dense jungle with no drivable road going through it. To circumvent that section of road, we're putting our van into a container and shipping it to Cartagena, Colombia, where we'll start the South American portion of our drive from Canada to Argentina. We built this van specifically with this in mind, and she fits into a high cube container with mere inches to spare. A fit so good that it required me to crawl underneath the van to get out.
Good thing we have a washing machine at our Airbnb.
An hour-long flight, barely enough time to reach cruising altitude, and we're touching down in South America. Welcome everybody to Colombia. Our first couple of days were spent in the Manga district of Cartagena, waiting for our container to be released from port. As we were only a short walk from Centro, the city's historic center, we spent an evening strolling through the colonial streets, soaking in Colombia's vibrant and colorful culture. Food, song, and dance seemed to be the lifeblood of this country, and we were keen to get amongst it. After 2 additional days of waiting in the sweltering heat, our container with our van was released from port. We had only to resupply on food, water, and propane before leaving the city and beginning our Colombian adventure.
Well, we're on our way out of Cartagena right now. We're just trying to get propane, and then we're getting the heck out of here because it's like 42 degrees right now, 80% humidity. I am soaking, Meg is soaking, and we've got like 10 and a half hours of driving to get to the mountains where it's cool. So as soon as we get that gas, we're going pedal to the metal and getting the heck out of here.
Yeah.
The 2 days of driving ahead would take us from the Caribbean coast of Colombia to the northern Andes, where there was the promise of cooler climates up high and our first wild camp in the country. One of the notable differences from the countries we had traveled through that we noticed almost immediately was the quantity of motorbikes on the road. At times, it was like a river of riders flowing around us. We'd be traversing a vast agricultural region spanning the far west of Colombia, a region webbed through with waterways containing hundreds of small communities along their banks. Then finally, after what seemed like an eternity of driving through the hot and humid flats, we spotted mountains in the distance and not so long after began to climb. And climb. And climb. A couple of hours of driving into the mountains, we had arrived at our first wild camp in Colombia, a place called Los Estoraquis. A nature reserve within the Bella Vista region, Los Estoraquis features a section of hillside eroded over thousands of years that has resulted in a multitude of towering spires. The park has a beautiful open area for day trippers, picnickers, and travelers like us to set up and enjoy the natural beauty of the area. We stayed here for 3 nights to cool off and recuperate. Our container buddies Laura and Renaud joined us for a night of camping before we set out again to delve deeper into the lush and green wilderness of the Colombian Andes. Before leaving the Bella Vista region though, we'd stop in for some true Colombian hospitality at the Abril household, a family who'd come to chat with us while we were camping and then invited us over for lunch soon after. The language barrier may have been high, but it's nothing some good Colombian cuisine couldn't get through.
First thoughts, babe.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
Sope de frijoles.
Clank, clank.
Our time with the Abril family was true Colombian kindness put on display and a great way to start off our time in the country.
Look at those mountains. They're gorgeous. There's a cowboy on a motorbike.
From there, we went hunting for another wild camp somewhere in the hills. After striking out numerous times as the sun went down, we eventually found exactly what we were looking for. After 2 nights spent at this hillside spot, we were off again, making our way further into the mountains. As we made our way into the wilds of Colombia, it felt as though we were once again hitting our stride. Endless dirt tracks lay ahead of us to be explored, clean rivers, cool mountain air, and epic camp spots. After months in the sweltering heat of Central America, Colombia was literally feeling like a breath of fresh air. After hours of driving winding and bumpy mountain roads, we eventually arrived in Nuevo Gramolote, a city that had been completely rebuilt by the Colombian government roughly a decade ago after the old town further down and on the other side of the valley had been mostly covered by a landslide. We stayed for 2 nights at Camping Perilous, an eco-camp on the side of town nestled into a small coffee plantation. The caretaker took us on a short tour to show off the coffee plants and educate us a little bit on how the plantation works.
Okay, cool. Ah, gracias.
Let's see. Coffee beans. Can you eat one?
Okay. Let's see it. What's it like? Wow, so sweet. Hard.
Yeah.
Too hard to eat.
Colombia es cafetero.
Cafetero.
Colombia.
Tenemos muchos patos en Canadá.
Sí, sí. Tome muchos patos.
Has a
Handful of bananas.
handful of bananas right off the tree.
Yeah,
Totally natural.
best banana I've had.
A good dog. He's tied up for some reason.
This right here is coffee from the coffee plantation.
Toma una foto,
How
sí,
about
sí.
that?
Fresh from the
Es
farm.
video. Thank you guys. Gracias.
Our first week in Colombia was spent mostly driving without any real target in mind. We'd choose a route that looked good that would get us from A to B, drive it, then camp, but our direction was always south. However, this time, leaving Nuevo Gramolote, we had somewhere we were looking to get to, but we need to descend nearly to sea level to reach it, which meant plenty more driving through the mountains. A random detour off the main highway took us here, where we decided to camp for the night. At first the view was blocked by dense clouds, but as we waited and watched, a stunningly beautiful Colombian mountainscape emerged. It is times like these that if you just sit and wait, they become some of your best and most vivid memories. The next day, we opted to continue down the mountain on the gravel instead of going back to the highway. Turns out this was the correct decision, as it provided us an opportunity to get a look at the quaint mountainside community nestled into the valley below. A word of advice from a couple Canadian travelers: always follow the gravel road.
Canadiense.
País de America Sur.
First air down in how long?
Months. We've just been on, kind of side gravel roads, and yeah, it hasn't been anything too difficult. One of the many bridges. You can see how wide they are. Not very wide, but. We've got heavy traffic on the Via Ferrera today. Looks like driver is going to be held up for an additional 5 minutes. past the slow tractor up ahead.
We had made our way to the Via Ferrera, or Iron Road, an abandoned railway that is now utilized by locals as a transport route, but is slowly being reclaimed by the river that it follows. The route has a series of high iron train trestles that, if you're looking for a bit of a thrill, you can drive your vehicle across. Our friends had driven the route 2 years before us, and after watching them do it, I simply could not resist. As we continued south, the bridges became progressively longer and taller, with the final bridge crossing the raging river we had been following for the whole day prior. As solid ground dropped far below us, our nerves spiked and adrenaline began to pump through our veins. This experience was certainly scary.
I'm shitting bricks right now.
Are you?
That was so scary.
It wasn't that scary from over here.
No, it wasn't.
Are you shaking?
Holy moly.
I can't believe you stopped for so long. I just didn't approve of that one bit. I'm shaking. I don't like this!
With our goal of completing the Iron Road out of the way, we began our climb back up into the mountains. Our next destination was the town of El Cocoy. From there, we'd start the hike to Pulpito del Diablo and the Pan de Azucar Glacier.
Oh, holy smokes! Like, the whole thing just collapsed or something. Wow.
At this point, we were beginning to realize that driving anywhere in the Colombian mountains takes a long time. From what we were told later, the country has seen a long stretch of rainy season-like rainfall, which has saturated the ground and made hillsides very unstable. This, of course, results in the roads suffering collapses all over the place. Construction was everywhere as workers scrambled to keep transport routes open. In a constantly shifting landscape like this, it takes a concerted effort to maintain the road systems. We found camp alongside a river on the way to El Cocoy, where our friends Renaud and Laura caught up with us. They'd be joining us for the hike to Pulpito del Diablo. A guide is required to do the hike, and having more people lessens how much each person has to pay. We instantly fell in love with each colorful town, of which there are many in the mountains of Colombia. Each community has its own charm and appeal, and it's totally wonderful to drive through each one. We eventually made it to El Cocoy and met our guide for a pre-hike briefing, which was followed by lunch at a small restaurant. Oddly enough, this was our first time purchasing a traditional Colombian meal from a restaurant. It was hearty, delicious, and quite economical. After lunch, we climbed higher into the mountains to get a camp spot at elevation. As we'd be hiking to 5,000 meters in a few days, it was imperative that we acclimate to the elevation to lessen the blow on our bodies while climbing a trail of 1,000 meters gain over 20 kilometers that started from 4,000 meters. This was our first real introduction to high elevation activities in the Andes. From this point on in our trip, we would remain nearly entirely above 3,000 meters until coastal Peru, and then not again after that until coastal Chile. First snow-capped mountains in like 8 months. We spent 2 relaxing days at this spot sitting at around 3,800 meters, taking the time to watch the clouds go by while attempting to catch a full breath, which was nearly impossible. When the day finally came for us to hike, we felt about as prepared as we could be for the undertaking.
Really old.
Yeah.
So the ones you see
The climb was grueling. Although the first few kilometers were relatively flat and served as a good warm-up, as soon as the trail turned upwards and steepened, the breath fell out of our lungs and each step began to feel heavier with every meter gained. By the time we had reached the long rock shelf before the glacier, we were slowly trudging our way up. Our efforts were rewarded when we reached the foot of the glacier and Pulpito del Diablo emerged from out behind the clouds, and the sun began to warm our wind-chilled bodies. In short, this was an exceptional and truly memorable experience.
Do we take another trail to go down?
After spending another 3 days at our camp spot on Cerro Ahoma, we left to drive a gravel mountain route that would take us south towards Bogota. Shortly after departing our spot, we would climb over a pass topping out at 4,300 meters, the highest we had ever driven the van at that point. We found our next camp in a field on the other side of the mountain with a breathtaking view and flowers surrounding us. The cool mountain air, the lack of people around, and the epic mountain views made it impossible not to stay put for another couple nights. Finding our pace means to us that we take our time where we need to. If there's a spot that feels like it'll be comfortable for a night or two, we stay. This part of Colombia was providing that for us, and after Central America, where wild camping is a challenge to find, this familiar pace was feeling really, really good. Little did we know at the time, there had been growing tensions between law enforcement and the local cartels in this region. As we rolled through some of the small towns along the way, we noticed a heavy military presence, and then later we were moved on by police when we tried to camp near a town. Our drive day was extended by a few hours as we attempted to find camp somewhere out of the way and out of sight. We wound up here on the side of a lesser used mountain road, and the next morning enjoyed a beautiful sunrise before once again continuing south. The slow crawl along the high mountain roads and through the multitude of small villages was exactly the speed we had been looking for, allowing us time to notice the small details of the region we were passing through. After a long day of driving, we climbed back out of a deep valley in search of a spot in the paramo to make camp for the night. That spot would be the place where our travels would change irreversibly for the remainder of the trip.
It's perfectly level. Beautiful. Oh my goodness. Hey there, honey. Is it cold outside?
It's very cold. Doing some squats to warm up.
Oh, okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Later that night, a close friend notified me of the passing of two of our dear friends, Matthew and Stacy. Our world suddenly collapsed in around us, and we were left stunned by what we had learned. The two people who had inspired the very trip we were on were gone. Feeling incapable of choosing a direction, of moving forward or finding the desire to press on, we sat there for 3 days alone and silently mourning our friends. It was here that our trip very nearly ended. After a lot of conversations with friends and family back home, we decided that the best thing we could do and the best way we could honor the memory of our friends was to continue on with our trip. It's what they would have wanted after all. So we packed up the van, aired down our tires, and launched ourselves into a 2-day mountain traverse on muddy gravel roads to reach our next destination.
So we're on this very obscure track. Basically, it is just a shortcut across the mountains instead of doing this big roundabout route on the main highway. And so far, it's been fine. It's been really like rocky and slow, but we just got to a section near a river crossing, and it's super muddy. And now the van is a bit stuck in the mud.
So close. There's a tree we can winch to over there. Yeah, we were.
So we just met some locals on horseback, and they said that we won't be able to pass up ahead because the road gets way worse. So yeah, the fun part about getting unstuck is that we have to go straight back. Great.
Driving down a river right now. It's wild how much water is on the road.
Cool cars. Like those two up there. Look at that. Hey.
Yeah, the old 40 series.
40 series.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Oof.
Wow,
That's a restoration right
That's
there.
so cool.
In keeping with our adventure routine, after getting turned around due to mud and washouts, we traveled north for a bit and then traversed west via another long dirt road. Our next destination drew ever closer, albeit very, very slowly. If you choose to get off the beaten track in Colombia, you will be treated to some of the most jaw-dropping landscapes. Never in our lives had we seen more shades of green and biodiversity. Although the miles are hard miles due to the state of the backroads, we'd have it no other way. The backroutes in Colombia, in our humble opinion, are the best way to travel the country. The place we had been working to reach was Las Ventanas de Tisquizoque, a multi-tiered waterfall running out from a large cave. We'd learned about this place from Matthew and Stacy, and seeing as they had walked through here less than 2 years before us, it seemed like a fitting place to bid them farewell on their next big adventure. For us though, our adventure on this planet continued, and we were going to live it with all of the energy and gusto that we could muster. We do it for us, we do it for Matthew and Stacy, and we'll do it for you, because all of you need to see how beautiful this world is. After 3 days of driving, we arrived at our friends Robert and Andrea's place near Bogota. We rested with them for a few days, taking time to visit, get to know their animals, and attend to some maintenance on the van.
Are you the troublemaker?
Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, don't bug me when I'm eating. I get it.
You're so cute.
Those are good scratches.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Earlier maintenance had revealed a stuck brake caliper, so we changed out all of the brake fluid in the lines and reservoir. As well, still being unfamiliar with the effects of high elevation with the van struggling up hills as much as it was, I changed out our MAF and MAP sensors in hopes that we would gain some horsepower back. In case you were wondering, we didn't get anything back. We were just that high up. Aside from that, our time with Robert and Andrea was an excellent time to relax and recuperate from the road before continuing on. After following Robert back to town on his off-road route of a driveway, we passed through Bogota and made camp with Juan from Overland Sally, who had helped us with shipping some parts into Colombia earlier. He introduced us to some fun Colombian delicacies, and we shared stories from the road beside a campfire that night. Then, it was off to another part of the country. We were headed for Los Nevados National Park, where we would once again climb high up into the paramo to breathe in some more cool mountain air.
What is going on with this place, babe?
It's the most beautiful place ever.
What? This is incredible.
We spent another 2 nights camped here, enjoying the mountain views once again. We simply could not get enough of the high elevation paramos of Colombia. They are truly magical and precious places to behold. Then it was time to leave in search of one of our favorite things, hot springs.
Hey, long legs.
Aside from the natural hot springs we'd found just down the mountainside from our camp, there was also a small campground called Termales El Pino where we stayed that night. This spot has 3 pools at 3 different temperatures, all of which are scalding hot, but the surroundings are hard to beat.
Baby cows.
Yeah.
They don't know to be scared yet.
Having traveled west into the Cordillera Central, our compass was now turning south towards the coffee region of Colombia. We stayed in Salento and then the next day went for a coffee tour at Finca El Ocasa. Here we learned all about the whole process of making coffee, from where different coffee beans come from, to planting and harvesting, then drying and roasting.
Now the other hand is that this process is actually this is known as a tradition. Preparing coffee is like a ritual. Actually, I just have like a 1 month.
With our coffee tour complete, we left Salento and began to climb again. Ahead of us was the Cocora Valley, which holds the country's highest concentration of wax palms, the national tree of Colombia and the highest standing palm tree species in the world, often climbing as high as 60 meters. As is our custom, we would not be taking the traditional route through the area. Instead, we'd follow a winding mountain road that would cut off a large corner of the highway route from Salento to Ibagué. When we finally stopped for the night amidst a planted pine forest, we were treated to an absolutely stunning sunset, something that oddly enough we hadn't caught many of in a long time. The next morning, we continued up and over the mountain and down into a Dr. Seuss world filled with towering wax palm trees. I hadn't expected much from this experience. However, I was pleasantly surprised by how excited I was to witness with my own eyes this wonderful natural spectacle.
This is the section of road that everyone, I think, is saying that it's
You need
rough.
a good 4x4, they say.
Yeah,
Whatever that means.
whatever that means.
I think we've got a good 2x4.
Yeah.
It had been a while since we had camped in or near a volcano. Volcano was just off the side of our route through the mountains, so we opted to go stay there for a couple nights and prolong our time in this part of the country. There had been multiple warnings on iOverlander as to the state of this road, so we were a little bit skeptical about our success in reaching the volcano. We'd done fairly well in making it to locations during our trip despite having a two-wheel drive vehicle, and that success mainly stems from accurately assessing the capabilities of our vehicle versus the terrain we're on. We try our best to trust the capabilities of our van, but not to be overconfident. Luckily, this road, although in bad shape, was well within our comfort zone. That being said, some folks don't always make an accurate assessment of the terrain and wind up needing a little bit of help. Help that we are always eager to give.
We love saving people on 4x4 roads, don't we?
With our fellow road users safely out of the mud, we picked our way through and successfully made our way to the other side to enjoy some peaceful camping in a farmer's field.
Jeevers, creevers! Aired down tires helps.
To Meg's utter delight, we were surrounded by livestock the next morning. Cows, donkeys, horses, and farm dogs came up to the van for a sniff or a visit, all of whom Meg attempted to cuddle.
Stay. I want a hug.
After 2 nights and a torrential downpour, we left the crater of Volcano, just barely making it out through the now water-filled and slick gauntlet of goopy mud.
Another little cute like.
Not the little cute thing. These like pre-samurai Suzukis are even tinier than samurais. It's wild.
As our time in Colombia was quickly coming to a close, our final destinations were now just ahead of us. A day of driving would have us reach the Tatacoa Desert first, but before that we'd need to make our way down from the volcano and back to the highway. Our route out of the dense jungle would plunge us down the mountainside and through a steep river valley that once we'd reached the bottom, we'd need to climb our way out. The video will never do it any justice, but it was a stress-inducing climb out. We had learned by then that it's impossible to know what's around the corner in Colombia, and the roads can always and often do get very steep. Luckily for us though, we were able to make it out of the valley and back to the highway. The remainder of our drive that day was uneventful, something we were rather glad for at that point. We woke the next morning alongside the back road leading into the Tatacoa Desert. It was the same abandoned railway we had driven along earlier in Colombia. It wasn't long before we were once again on a towering decommissioned train bridge looking down into the river below. From the high, green-coated mountains, we flipped the script and found ourselves in a desert-dry, low area full of dust, cactus, and that feeling that rain is rather allergic to this region. Honestly, the change in climate, although the temperature had climbed significantly, was very welcome. As West Coast Canadians, we're oddly drawn to dry places. I think it's simply due to the fact that it's so different from what we're used to. The Tatacoa reminded us immediately of places like Baja California, Mexico, and the southwestern deserts of the USA, two places in the world we have grown to love to travel to in recent years. At sunset and sunrise, the Tatacoa Desert put on a display for us that only a desert can put on. A surrounding landscape of cool pastels in the evening and warm hues in the morning. After months of traveling through a land carpeted in green, the change in color palette was truly welcome and appreciated. The Tatacoa Desert is divided into the Red and Gray Desert. As we had slept in the Gray Desert that night, before leaving for our final destination, we took a short stroll to soak in the Red Desert. Then, just like that, the landscape flipped and we were crawling our way back into the Green Mountains on the Trampoline de la Muerte. This road existed as an ancient supply line between Putumayo and the Amazon, but was expanded in the 1930s during the Colombia-Peru War. It's now used by locals traveling between Pasto and Mocoa and has become an exciting route for overlanders due to its narrow sections built into the steep and unstable mountainsides. The road is roughly 50 to 60 kilometers, but took us about 6 hours to drive.
no idea. Okay, now he's going. Okay.
Gracias.
When we arrived in the city of Pasto, we stopped at a shop to do a transmission fluid change. This launched us into a completely different and stress-inducing side adventure that would continue for the remainder of our trip. Once that was complete though, we camped one more night in Colombia before crossing the border into Ecuador.
Down, cops.
Oh. Yay!
Ecuador, country number 12, 12. Let's go!
As our first step into South America, Colombia left an imprint deeper than we ever expected. It's a land alive with color and rhythm, where culture runs rich, the landscapes stretch endlessly, and every road seems to lead to something unforgettable. But more than anything, it's the people who define it. Warm, generous, and endlessly kind. The days we spent here have settled into something lasting. Memories shaped by quiet moments, chance encounters, and the feeling of being welcomed, not as strangers, but as friends passing through. Of every mile we've driven along the Pan American Highway, Colombia stands apart as the kindest and the most open-hearted place we've known. And it's a place that doesn't feel finished to us, but waiting for our return. To everyone who welcomed us into your homes, who waved from the roadside, who offered a hand when we needed it, thank you. Until we meet again, Colombia.